joining this ECOSYSTEX Insights Series webinar. My name is Tilla Cross and I work as Sustainability Programs Officer at Textile ETP, and I'll guide you through this webinar today. Whilst people are arriving, let me remind you of our webinar procedures. So be aware that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared on public channels. If you have questions to our speakers, please type them in the chat and we will address them in the dedicated time during the Q&A. And if you would like to elaborate on a question, please raise your hand and we will invite you to speak. This is the agenda of today. So after a very brief introduction of myself into what actually ECOSYSTEX and our community is, we will have 4 speakers from 4 different member projects. First, we hear from the CISUTAC project and then the CALIMERO project, time for a Q&A, followed by SCIRT and hemp for circularity, another Q&A, and then I will wrap up and point out some interesting member events that are upcoming. So yes, I mentioned ECOSYSTEX now a couple of times, and in case you're joining us for the first time, what actually is ECOSYSTEX in our community? So it's what we call the European Community of Practice for a Sustainable Textile Ecosystem, and it's essentially a cluster of EU-funded research and innovation projects that work on textile sustainability and circularity. And this community was launched in January 2023 with the goal to create a permanent expert community and central knowledge hub for practical application of EU-funded science and technology for textile sustainability. And our objectives are threefold. So for one, we want to foster inter-project collaboration. As you can see on the slide, our community has grown to by now 34 member projects, which include companies across Europe, organizations, clusters, and hundreds of experts. And we want to bring them together to foster collaboration so they can exchange and share their best practices and knowledge. The second activity that we do is engagement with policymakers. So occasionally we consult our expert community and ask them for input that we can then provide to policymakers to facilitate their decision making. And the third activity is dissemination, like for example this webinar, because we want to ensure that an interested public can of course also stay updated of what is going on in these research projects funded by the EU. Here on the right side, you can see some key figures of our communities. As I said, we are 34 member projects, 240 registered experts that come together in 6 different working groups. And we also organize roughly every other month these webinars and also an annual conference. So I talked a lot now about our projects. Here you can see all of them on one slide. And these 4 are the ones that we'll be presenting today. And without much further ado, I'll bring back the agenda, and it's time for our first speaker, Emma, to take over the floor and introduce what the CISUTAC project is doing.
Thank you. So then I will share. Sorry, just a moment. Oh, precious seconds. Okay, so I'm CISUTAC and I am Emma Enebog, one of the work package leaders. The agenda in short, CISUTAC, I will talk a little bit about that, our future scenarios and an open access tool for channeling waste. First, I'm from RISE, a Swedish research institute. We work with 17 sectors developing competitive solutions. Textiles is one, where we do new generation fibers, recycling technologies, as a couple of examples. Back to CISUTAC, that is quite a large project with an aim and an objective to developing sustainable, novel, inclusive, large-scale European value chains. We have the CISUTAC partners is a very well-balanced EU mix covering the whole value chain. And we will demonstrate our solutions in pilots. So please follow the CISUTAC newsletter for more information. It will be a very exciting pilot on a semi-automated repair station with partners start with fall that will try to do faster SIP repairs supported by this semi-automated repair station. So very excited. But now over to the focus where we worked. We've launched a report called about circular transition, and I will talk about two parts of this report: the open access software with guidelines for post-consumer textile waste channeling. It's basically a tool, and future scenarios for transition. And I will start with the scenarios. Okay, so welcome to the future. So we had so much fun in this process. We used the foresight method. So in several workshops together with our partners, we explored the future. We also made a stop at the ECOSYSTEX conference in Barcelona and got more feedback from the participants there. So what did we do? Well, we explored all the trends and signals that we can see today, but we focused on the uncertainties that may impact the future in many different ways. So uncertainties like geopolitics or economics or the upcoming regulations or technical developments. So welcome to the future. What will the ecosystem look like in 2035? And this is not, we didn't paint the picture of the desirable futures that we all long for and wish for. This should be seen as a boot camp. You should, prep and train your skill to think about the future in very different ways and how these uncertainties may impact the future. So, as I said, you should use them to ignite your curiosity, inspire more questions about the future, and it could be used to reflect on your own business practices or your work towards more sustainability. So what we did, according to the foresight method, is that we set up a scenario matrix based on the two major uncertainty as we decided for our work. And that is, how will the global markets, or how will the markets develop in the future? Will it be more global, or will we do more local, European, regional, circular value chains? We don't know that yet. It could go in either directions. And the other thing that we decided to be the base of this scenario matrix is, how will business models, practices, and behavior develop in the future? Will we go to more slow fashion with more re-commerce business models and new business, or more new behaviors, consumer behaviors, or will we go to the other direction that we perhaps see today with fast fashion, or perhaps even ultra fast fashion loops in the future? So this is the base to our scenario development, how we boxed the scenarios, the 4 different ones. So I will now start with the first one, and I will only short take you through them. It will be a glimpse of the scenarios. We have lovely videos on the CISUTAC webpage, and we also have narratives in the report if you would like to use them. So please go ahead. So the first scenario A, slowing down, is a new paradigm of sustainable fashion goes global. So basically, we have succeeded with the re-commerce business models. We are consuming reuse and repair, but we still have these global value chains, and the Asians market has set up new repair fabrics near Europe and supplying us with what we need to these new business models. So we've been successful with shifting behavior, but European competitive has a bit not been as successful in this global market. We have the next scenario, that is the fast fashion paradox. Here, material recycling become big business. So we have succeeded with the fiber-to-fiber recycling, but we have not managed to shift behavior. So we still have this fast fashion, or perhaps even ultra fast fashion, and we still struggle with reducing impact from the textile industry. We have quality exclusive, a cornerstone of a European circular value chain. So here, Europe decided early in this transformation journey to really put an effort in economic incentives and policy that enforced the European companies to build up these regional value chains with repair, reuse, and so on. So we have here more of a European strong market. We have Stream Your Wardrobe, a subscription models that will disrupt fast fashion. So here we are basically not owning our clothes. We have all what we need in our, if it is a mobile phone in the future, some sort of subscription that supplies us with what we need and when we need it. But here we are very dependent on green energy, so something has to happen there. We played around with small nuclear plants all over Europe in this narrative, but also here we are more dependent on the big companies that are good with the AI development. So here we have them. Please check in the videos if you want to have a more in-depth description, or the report to read the whole narratives describing these scenarios. So thank you. Now I go over to the open access tool for channeling waste. As you can notice, I speak fast because I have a lot to say. So as you know, if we want to do something with the waste and transform it into a feedstock for recycling, but also if we want to strengthen the market around reuse and repair, we need more information. We need to be able to more accurately sort, basically. And here we explored how we can do that based on data. So first we identified what data is relevant here, and then we identified what data do we need and how does that have an impact on different, how to take decision on how to channel the waste to either reuse, repair, mechanical recycling, or chemical recycling. So we made a tool. It's up on the CISUTAC webpage, and it's a start of something, and it can be used to learn the basic principle of channeling waste based on data. I will explain it a bit soon. So here we identified all the relevant data points. The one that is marked in red is a bit even more relevant when you need to take a decision around if the waste is suitable for chemical or mechanical recycling. We identify what data points can be handled with current technology. That's only 2. And we explored what we think the upcoming digital product passport, what data points should be included there. And as you can see, it is a lot of data points, because as we see, some are more important today, but as we see technology evolving in the future, we see we will recommend that it is important to have a little bit possibilities to use several data points in order to be more efficient with the new technology that we don't have today. And one of our findings is that condition is crucial. That is a crucial data point because it is the data point that decides if a garment should go to either reuse, recycling, or repair. And this data point needs to be divided into underlying data points, and it needs a definition. So here we made a first draft. It is not perfect, but we see that this needs to be developed further as a branch standard used by the whole industry, because we see this is an important part of making a transparent textile management, basically. What garment could we export? What garments should go to recycling, and so on. So this is an important work to take in a next step. Another important finding is that this can never be handled by the digital product passport, because the digital product passport cannot take into account how a garment is used, what will happen to it during the use phase. So for this condition, we need another technology that could be the AI technology. And that is also going to be tested in the CISUTAC project in one of its pilots, how we can include AI to detect these parts together with other technology that is better on other parts. So here we mapped how technology can manage these data points today. So I just wanted to highlight here that condition cannot be handled by the digital product passport. So we need supporting technology. So the technology mix basically is going to be a part of the future, but it is also clear that the digital product passport is of a big advantage since it can handle so many of the data points in a good mix. But of course, it needs to be tested and the technology needs to be efficient. So I just want to shortly show a channeling route, how we did it, how to take decisions. So I did an example on chemical recycling. So what will decide that it will go to chemical recycling is, of course, condition that it's low. Repairability is not suitable for repairability. The fabric color, fabric color should stay here, is dark because chemical recycling can handle dark colors. Mechanical cannot. Product construction, it could be of a multi-material, so two materials put together. For example, one of these materials could be polyester. Here I put in 100% because today that's needed for doing post-consumer textile chemical recycling. Not in the future, perhaps, but the material could also be then 100% polyester. So here we have two materials in the garment. It could be one garment has recycled content. That is okay. Multi-layer is not okay because laminations and that kind of can make a problem. Chemicals, there are no chemicals, and what we mean here is that is not the most critical chemical group. Then we have only done like, is it yes or no? And here it's no, and then it's okay. So we done it only on in a simple way here. And then textile finishing, can it handle that? Well, some, but not others. So here we have some finishing, but the ones that is suitable for this technology. And we identified the game stoppers. So here then it is the chemical content. If it would have been a critical chemical group of some sort, then it's not suitable. If it would have elastin in one of the fiber composition, it is not suitable. And if it would have been these listed textile finishes, it would have not been suitable. So this is the principle that we played around with in detail, and what you find in the tool, and you can play around and learn for yourself. There's also an underlying Excel sheet where you can go in and check all the details. So a simplified version of this tool will be tested in the Regio Green Text project to see if we can use the findings to start, not by what we have today, to matchmake companies that has waste with the companies that can sort or wants to buy a material. So we would also do a more guide there to see how you can use these findings practically today in that project. So that will be, I think, also a good next step. Okay. So key findings, I think I will skip that because I will respect time, but thank you so much for the attention.
Thank you very much, Emma, for this interesting CISUTAC presentation and sharing everything you've been up to in the past past months. And yeah, for everyone who's listening, if you have questions, please type them in the chat, and we will have one more presentation and then time for a Q&A. And now let me check. Yes, the next presentation is by Eduardo from Contactia. Yes, good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
So please take over the floor.
Okay, thank you. Can you see my screen in
Yes.
full mode? Full
Yes,
screen
perfect.
mode. Okay, perfect, thank you. So I'm going to start. Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Eduardo Entrena. I am the Technical and Scientific Coordinator of CALIMERO. And today I would like to give you an overview of the project as well as the preliminary results obtained until now. To do this, I have decided to entitle the presentation as the CALIMERO project, going beyond the life cycle sustainability assessment methodology. Starting from giving some key information about the project, the official title is Industry Case Studies Analysis to Improve Environmental Performance and Sustainability of Bio-based Industrial Processes, from which the acronym CALIMERO comes from. The leading partner is the Spanish company Contactica, that it is focused on the writing of the proposal and the execution of research and development European projects. And about the consortium, it is composed not only for other companies, but also for universities or research institutions of European countries such as Sweden, France, or Denmark. And in relation to the time extension, the project it started in July 2022 and it is expected to be finished in June next year. Okay, so now focus on the main aim and the context of the project. Its main goal is to pave a way for the transition to a sustainable European bioeconomy by improving the sustainability performance of a series of industrial processes. For that, up to 5 bio-based industries were selected that were construction, woodworking, textiles, pulp and paper, and biochemicals. In addition to do this, a series of case studies were selected throughout Europe in the following countries: Spain, France, Belgium, Sweden, and Turkey. In addition, from these main goals, up to 6 secondary objectives emerge. First, the identification of the main barriers when applying the life cycle sustainability approaches, as well as the identification of which are the source of the impacts in the 5 target bio-based sectors above mentioned. Second, the establishment of a reference case study throughout Europe. Third, the improvement of the current sustainability assessment methodologies. Fourth, the development of a multi-objective optimization framework, which allow us to improve the sustainability performance of the industrial processes. Five, the identification and provision of feasible solutions that improve that sustainability profile. And last but not least, the maximization of the impact of the project through tailored exploitation, dissemination, and communication activities. With the commitment of all these objectives, a roadmap was established to be followed, that is constituted by up to 5 consecutive steps. The first one, it goes about to do a literary review about what are the main gaps when when the data inventory is compiling apart from the identification of the hotspot analysis to the simulation of the industrial processes at different scales. 3, to conduct an optimization of the sustainability assessment approach through a multi-objective optimization framework. 4, to identify, evaluate, and demonstrate which are the best solutions in order to improve that sustainability profile of the industrial processes. And 5, to provide a series of recommendations and guidelines in this regard. So focusing now on which methodology was applied, the sustainability assessment proposed by the CALIMERO was based on the European standard for conducting life cycle assessment, that is the product environmental footprint method. But from the CALIMERO consumption, we try to go one step further, in the sense that we not only consider the emissions to the third compartments that are the air, water, soil, apart from the water and energy requirements, but also we try to propose and evaluate a series of new methods based on a series of key concepts, such as ecosystem services, apart from improving some impact categories that are the carbon footprint, for example, in the sense that we propose to include time dependent dimensions. And in addition, in order to encompass a holistic view of the sustainability concept, we also address the life cycle costing and the social life cycle assessment methodology. To do this, a series of indicators have been proposed. Consequently, going more into the detail of the methodology, the main aim is to improve the current life cycle sustainability assessment methodology, taking the PEF guide as a reference. Then in this figure, it is presented the main difference between the product environmental footprint toolbox and the methodology proposed in the CALIMERO project. That can be said that 3 key aspects have been differentiated or can be highlighted. The first one is the improvement of the current environmental indicators. In this sense, the time dimensions have to be included within the carbon footprint in terms of the greenhouse gas emissions. On the other hand, additional new indicators for the environmental domain have been proposed, focusing on key concepts such as biodiversity. In addition, a particularization of the different bio-based industry will be done. In this sense, we will be evaluating a series of toxicity characterization factors that are specific for the industrial processes I analyze. And lastly, as I said before, in order to follow a comprehensive view of the sustainability concept, the social and economic pillar will be addressed through tailored indicators. In this sense, for example, for the economic domain, the net present value will be evaluated. And for the social one, we have proposed to estimate a job creation potential indicator. So moving now to the application of this methodology, basically, once we have the data inventory and the simulation of the industrial processes, we conduct the life cycle sustainability assessment in order to estimate a series of environmental, social, and economic indicators. After that, that indicator will be coupled with a multi-objective optimization framework in order to propose the best solutions in terms of the sustainability performance. To do this, a good working case study has been selected. This is based in the production of woodworks. In this sense, after one first stage that it is based on the forestry and the transport of the green wood, the bark chipping will be conducted. In this sense, wood chips will be obtained that after a drying and screening process, the adhesives will be included during the gluing process. Lastly, the pressing process is conducted, and after edge trimming and sanding, the final wood boards are produced. Then here is representing the main stages of the production process that I showed you before. In this sense, for the gluing process, the variables to be modified within the multi-objective optimization framework was the adhesive concentration. And in regard to the pressings, the modeling of the adhesive emission will be simulated. According to the variables to be modified were the temperature and the pressing time. Then here is shown which variables we have selected to be modified and their ranges in terms of the minimum and maximum value to be modified that guarantees the proper properties of the good words. In this sense, a series of social, environmental, economic objectives were selected. For example, for the economic objective, we have estimating the operational expenditures in terms of raw materials and energy requirements. And all of them are tried to be minimized. Then after carrying out the multi-objective optimization framework coupled with the life cycle sustainability assessment methodology, we have found up to 2 potential solutions that all the objectives are improving in relation to our reference solutions. So moving on a more easy to understand way, we have presented here the relative reductions for each of the sustainability objectives that it can be concluded that significant improvement has been achieved. In addition, we have give an additional conclusion that is that reducing the pressing time and the adhesive concentrations while increase slightly the temperature of the pressing can achieve general improvement in terms of sustainability. In addition, up to 2 ways of proceedings have been identified. For example, if our aim is to minimize the toxic emission because we have focused on the social objectives, we have to increase the pressing time and to decrease the temperature. Conversely, if we try to reduce the environmental impact in terms of CO2 emissions, we have to reduce the pressing time and increase the temperature of the pressing process. And last but not least, as a take-home message mode, we have give an overview of the project in this slide, and that basically I would like to say that the CALIMERO project is trying to analyzing a series of case study in 5 bio-based sectors in order to identify feasible solutions and improve their environmental, economic, and social performance under a life cycle approach. In addition, new methodological developments to assess the sustainability of the bio-based industry are being implemented, using the broader environmental footprint as a starting point. On the other hand, a multi-objective optimization framework is used in order to tune operational parameters and improve the sustainability profile of the industrial processes. And lastly, a series of guidelines and recommendations are addresses focus to key stakeholders such as industry, policymaker, and the scientific community. And that's all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Eduardo, for your CALIMERO project presentation. And yeah, please stay with us for the Q&A, and also to our audience. Well, maybe they still need to digest your presentation a bit to see if there are any questions. And in the time being, I'll ask Emma to join us again to answer what has been asked in the chat. So I'll just read out the first question from John. Is variation in textile composition also accounted for in the scenarios?
Yes, we have included that. It is a very important aspect of scaling fiber to fiber recycling, of course. So with exploring the trends, uncertainties, but also a little bit with our imagination, we included that in scenario B, and we in our narrative we described that policy targeting this aspect in regulation in a very good way so that it can scale fiber to fiber recycling, but we are not saying in what way or how, because that is not a part of the scenarios, but just to point out and highlight the need of the importance of material composition and the need of very correct and targeted regulation, and how that can have a positive or perhaps also negative impact on the fiber to fiber recycling.
Thank you. And another question was, who are the targeted end users of the tool?
Well, we see that it can be a decision maker, perhaps, is the main decision maker that needs to understand this shift when we go from a manual-based sorting industry and value chain to an automated data-driven value chain. It is quite a big leap. So I think one of the main purposes here is to explain how we need to and how we can use data as to help us with the decision making, and that is needed also with the shift from a manual process to automated process. But this could also be used, of course, by a company to see, okay, what can we learn? Can we include this insights of data in how we set up our processes and design? That is also possible. And it is also possible to be used by, of course, sorting companies to see how they can think about, okay, how should we invest in technology? How can we take this further? Should we go for AI, and what way? So that is also a possibility, of course. But I think for certain industries, some of these data points are already known, but I think we have added some new insight.
Thank you. And there has been one more question to you in the chat for now, and that is, how do you see the use of alternative future scenarios within a business context?
Yeah, I think they can be used just in an internal workshop with perhaps a smaller team or with the CEO. Why not? To just as you should use them as to train on future thinking, because it's very common that we just think about the next 3 years, or we have assumption about the future, and then we get a little bit, narrow-minded, and we are not prepared for the future. So they can be used to basically to have a conversation, start with a conversation, identify the different questions and ask yourself, what if this plays out? How will that affect our business? What can we do? What should we do in this future? And of course, all these future have also a couple of common questions that might also be something that then we need to start perhaps think a little bit more about this even today, even though we do not know what direction the world will be in 2035. So I would see them as your best friend to understand the future. They are not an answer, but they can help you, guide you to answer to spark questions.
Great. And there's been a question for Eduardo in the chat as well. So that is, with regards to CALIMERO project, are there already some outcomes available with regards to textiles, and if so, which?
Unfortunately not. I know that it will be more appropriate to show a textile case study for this workshop, but we only have a preliminary result for the woodworking sector. But we have expected to finalize our life cycle functionality assessment case study in the month of June, and we have expected to have preliminary results to be shared by the end of this year. So I hope to share with all of you more preliminary results related with the textile sector. Yes.
Yes, we will make sure to invite you again to an Insight Series webinar next year then. Thank you very much, the two of you. There've been, well, there was one more question actually to you, Eduardo. So any insights concerning deforestation and woodworking?
Yeah, this is one interesting question because this is one of the main concerns that we hope to include in our assessment, in the sense that we are trying to broaden the scope of the environmental study and try to assess the ecosystem services impacts. And in that sense, we would like to include deforestation data in our case study to assess the environmental impacts related, but this will be in a second step.
Yeah, it's all work in progress. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
And with that, we'll close our first Q&A and continue with the next presentation by Jasmien from the SCIRT consortium.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Just a second while I share my screen. Here we go.
Perfect.
So yes, my name is Jasmien, and I'm here to talk a bit about the SCIRT project from a brand perspective. So I work as a sustainability advisor for the Belgian fashion brand Xandres, who is one of the partners in this project. So maybe a bit less technical, a bit less scientific, but more from a practical side and our experiences in this project. So just to give you an idea who the brand is I'm talking about, because it's relevant for the information that's coming later in the presentation. So the brand I'm working for, Xandres, is a Belgian fashion brand who provides women's fashion, is already in business for 55 years and has about 120 employees. It has different sales channels, so 10 owned stores and about sales via 150 multi-brand stores across Europe, and also online sales via own web shop, Zalando, and so on. It's a typical SME, of which I think we have a lot in Europe in the fashion sector. So I think very relevant to see how these kind of SMEs are being challenged by the circular economy and the new systems we're working towards. Final note is this SME is part of a stock-noted company called the Damartex Group, who is a French group as from 2018. So Xandres, as a typical SME, has its own sustainability strategy and policy that says we are not an eco brand. And I think this is something we all know, that most fashion brands that are in business for quite some time, they are not sustainable brands. And it's not possible to become a 100% a circular or sustainable brand because of the business model and the rhythm we're in and the way of working that's defined within the industry. That doesn't mean that you cannot do better every day and that you cannot have a very fixed or clear strategy of how you can improve your environmental and social impacts within your company. And for Xandres, they defined 6 pillars a couple of years ago that they would be working on and are working on within the company to see how they can improve the entire value chain. As you can see, the 5 first pillars they're working on in the strategic approach are really focused on the products they're making. So how can we integrate low impact materials in the collection? How can we work with eco design? How can we get control on our supply chain and production, reduce our carbon footprints, work on repair and care to get our customers aligned in this more slow approach. But they also defined a 6th pillar, which is the Xandres Lab. And within this pillar, the company said we want to go a bit further, even though sometimes it's hard. We really want to see and try what we can do on a more advanced level in this future forward thinking circular economy. How can we experiment with things that are at this point really difficult to implement in our day-to-day business because they influence our business model, they influence the entire way of working. So this is where SCIRT comes in, because SCIRT is one of these kind of projects where the company is working on in this Xandres Lab. The SCIRT project itself started already 3 years ago in 2021. So we're in the end phase of the project now. So we still have 6 months to go. But we already achieved a lot with the partners in the consortium. The objective of SCIRT is to bring together research and industry frontrunners, and the project aims to accelerate the transition to a circular fashion system through technological and systemic innovation in textile-to-textile recycling. So we see a system approach on the one hand and a very technological pillar on the other hand. And that's also why we have a various range of project partners involved. We do not only have brands like Xandres, but we also have universities, we have sorters and recyclers. We have City, for example, in France, who does a lot of lab scale testing on the recycling. We have the partners that can do the industrial upscaling of textile-to-textile recycling, so we can work together on this full scheme. First, a step back. So why did we focus on textile-to-textile recycling within this project? Is, as you all know, I think we have a lot of discarded fashion, a lot of discarded textiles. And there's only a very small percentage that's being recycled into high quality fibers again. So it's about, or even less than 1%, as you can see on the slide. So there's a big mismatch between supply and demand, because we do see that a lot of fashion companies, they try to get more low impact fibers, and a lot of the time, or often they look at recycled content because there's a link with carbon footprint decline often. But yeah, there's still a difficulty to get this high quality textile-to-textile fibers in the fashion collections. Now, there is a mismatch. So we said, okay, why is there this mismatch? And we thought, yeah, often projects, they start from a technological perspective, and you say, okay, we know this kind of recycling is already possible mechanically or chemically or thermomechanically, and we try to improve step by step these kind of technologies. But we said, let's turn it around. Let's ask the markets, let's ask the fashion brands what kind of fabrics they have, they use a lot in their collections, and how can we try to approach these kind of fabrics as much as possible with the technologies we have today. So there were 5 brands, or there are 5 brands in the consortium that have different kind of demos defined. So you can see on the slide, it's not only fashion formal wear, but it's also casual wear, sportswear, and undergarments that we're working on. And we try to have a good representativeness of the different demos we're working on. Each brand chose 1 or 2 items that they wanted to reverse engineer in a product with a very high amount of recycled content. So for example, Honest is working on denim, Petit Bateau is working on the undergarments, Decathlon on swimsuits, and we see different kinds of fabric compositions that we're working on, making it very complex because we did not say, okay, let's do 100% polyester or 100% cotton, but let's start from these complex mixes that the industry is actually using. As you can see, Xandres is on the matrix on a circularity level, not really high, but on a price level a bit higher. So it means it's in the affordable luxury segment, and quality is really an essential to the collection and the fabrics that the brand is working with. So yeah, this demand-driven approach is actually what's really central within the SCIRT project. So you can see that the demos we're working on are in the heart of the project. We start from the garments and then looked at material pool, what do we need, but also how can we optimize then sorting and dismantling and recycling processes. So for example, Valvan is one of the partners, and they worked on improvements of their fiber sort machines, on trim clean, so that makes it easier to sort different waste streams and to get a higher amount of recycled content in the end. That's why we said, okay, for Xandres, and I'm going to try to explain this, what our idea was. For Xandres, for our specific demo, and each brand defines its own demo, we said we start from a certain type of pants and fabric that we sell and use a lot. So the composition isn't too easy, but we try to shred, or we try to start from the pants we have, and then we try to create a similar as possible eco-designed pants with the highest amount of recycled content as possible. So we go from collecting and sorting to recycling to yarn spinning to fabric weaving to design and production of the pants. And then, of course, we also need to think about the end of life, and then how can we get it back in the loop, or is it still again recyclable? So it sounds like a great idea, and I'm already sure that you now think, yeah, good luck, that's quite impossible. Yes, of course, it was quite impossible, but it was already a very interesting learning curve and process for all the partners. So our original idea was to have the composition more or less as we had it. So a wool polyester lycra blend, which is something that's quite often used in the industry. But on the first lab scale tests, before even going into industrialization phase, we saw a lack of efficiency in the recycling process, and not only on the cost, but also on the environmental impact, because the way the yarns were twisted was in this high quality, so it was twisted so much that if you needed to detangle and open up the yarns, we would need too much energy, and also we would have to shred too often, and the cost would be too high. So there already we had this issue, like, okay, we see a trade-off in this project between quality, or in this specific demo, between quality and a high percentage of recycled content. So here we were already faced with a very important principle, because we all know that quality will be key in longevity and durability of the sector. But yeah, the recycled content will be important as well. So that was the first an important bottleneck that we faced. So then we decided we will adapt our demo. So we will see what we can do. And we tried different scenarios. So for the feedstock and the collecting, we said, okay, let's then not start with our own bands and our own fabric, but let's start with post-consumer collecting wool separately. So still post-consumer, but in one stream we collect the wool. Then we said, okay, for the next phase, for the yarn, for the spinning, there we had to add of course, still the polyester. So we had the rPET bottles that we mixed in there. So we ended up with a wool mix, 30% post-consumer wool and 70% rPET. But of course, yeah, we didn't want an entire polyester pants. We still wanted a high composition of wool. So we tried in the fabric weaving to add extra recycled content and extra virgin wool as a second yarn. So in the weaving, we have 2 yarns. So we used our own yarn and other yarn to get a composition in the end with 87% recycled content and 22% virgin material. So with recycled polyester, virgin wool, and recycled wool. Of course, we're still working with rPET, so with the bottles, which is not ideal. So in a research phase, we're still trying to replace this rPET with polyester that we have from TU Vienna, distracted from our original pens. But in our final demo product, we will work with this composition to be sure that we can launch a demo within the time frame of the product. But we still are hopeful at this point that we can also replace the rPET with the polyester that was extracted from our post-consumer waste at TU Vienna. So we have the collecting, the spinning, the weaving, and then in the end we said, okay, we started with a pants and we wanted to create a pants, but with the fabric we have at this point, it's too difficult to create the design we had in mind. So we had to also redesign the products. And we came with another demo garment, but this, of course, it's not finished yet. You can see already a small teaser on the slide, but we will be launching it later this year. So some learnings from our side, from a brand perspective side. This is a very interesting project for us to be in. Why is that? Yeah, I told you, Xandres is an SME. It's a struggle at this point in this economic reality to even be competitive in the landscape we're in, with fast fashion, ultra fast fashion, with very low prices. It's hard to get people invest in high quality, and the current business model as it is already challenging. So if we wouldn't be in research projects like this, we wouldn't be able to do tests like this. And it's not only money-wise and capacity-wise that the funding is needed, but of course, also the partnerships needed. We don't have any technical knowledge in-house that goes that in depth. So, of course, we learned a lot with this project, but we don't have the textile engineers and so on that the big brands have. So we were very grateful to be working together with universities and so on. Second learning, I already touched upon this, is that quality and recycled content and/or recyclability don't always go hand in hand. And it's depending on your products and your business models that the choices need to be made. And I think also in the policy recommendations that will come out of the project, that this will be an important point. Xandres, for example, the pants I showed you, it's the same fabric that the brand uses for formal wear, for uniforms for the Belgian railways, for example. If you produce garments for Belgian railways, it makes sense to choose the high quality fabric over the recycled content, because you know that it will have to go for a very, very, very long time. So yeah, these are like trade-offs that you need to consider on a product level, we think, and also a bit on a segment. But the eco design is also a trade-off. We think design for longevity is only one aspect. We are now designing with a high amount of recycled content, but then we still haven't thought about design for recyclability. So how easy is it to again recycle the fabric that we now created, as it still is a blend of a lot of different materials? So these are all questions that we were facing, and that we that we think were very interesting as key learnings already for the project. So for the SCIRT project and what's still coming, as I said, we still have 6 months left. So for Xandres, for the limited edition collection that we're working on, we need to finalize it. So at this point, normally The spinning on industrial scale is done, so we will going into the industrial weaving phase and production phase. We will still be doing tests for REACH compliance and Oecotex, of course, because this is also an issue when we talk about recycled content. You don't know what chemicals that are in your post-consumer waste. We're still working on the business case, of course, because the pricing is different than when you buy your regular fabrics. And then we will be launching our sales of our limited edition collection in September. Then for the SCIRT project in general, there are other work packages that are still in process. So we are now working on the policy recommendations. We had a user board earlier this week in Berlin to get input from the sector to see what policy recommendations we can put forward. And we will also be launching a true cost tool. I'm not going into depth because that would take another 15 minutes, but we are working on a tool that not only gives you an overview of the retail cost, but that takes the environmental and social costs into account when designing a garment. And then we have our final event in October, so maybe we can see each other also there. That's it from my side. So thank you for your attention all.
Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. I also see that there are already the first questions in the chat, and we will address them then in the Q&A after the next presentation of Valentine. Hello, good morning, see you. So please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, nice. So let's share my screen. Okay. Can you see it well?
Yes, all good, thanks.
Hello. So thank you for inviting us to present Interact project Hemp for Circularity. We work with long fiber hemp, which is a new way of cultivating hemp, and it follows the flax model, which is already very common and typical for the Northwest region. So we believe hemp, especially the long fiber hemp with a high value, can really fit in a circular economical value chain. And so that's why we wanted to collaborate on this project. And so we want really to introduce the long fiber hemp locally in the textile value chain. It's a big project. It lasts 3 years, and we have a funding of about 2,300,000 euros with 11 partners. On the picture on the right of the presentation, you can see the hemp, how we process it. So you see parallel stems on the ground, and you see maybe also there are like 2 kinds of sweats, like we say. And so it's a very new way of cultivating hemp, especially totally mechanized. So it's a real challenge to bring this crop to Europe. The partners we work with, I am at Valbiom. We are the lead partners of the project. We have 4 other Belgian partners, OHEND, with Alexandra de Have, who is participating here to the webinar too. They have the FTE lab at OHEND, and for example, yesterday within the project, they organized a demo of weaving. We have also Inagro, which is a research center, Libeco, a very big flax weaver, now starting also to weave some hemp, and Heiler, which is the machine inventor, we can say, of that typical hemp harvesting machine. In France, we have the Alliance for Flax, Linen and Hemp. They represent the whole European flax industry and now also the hemp industry. L'Un et Chanvre Bio is a very active French partner. They started really as pioneers to do tests on long fiber hemp in France, something as 7 years ago. And Safilin is a very famous flax spinner here in Europe, and he is also part of the project because he wants to introduce hemp that would be then locally spun. In the Netherlands, we have a sculpture. You will see in the next picture what is a sculpting line, and Vanderbilt is also a research center. And then we have Natuvalis. These are people in Germany that want to implement those type of hemp in Germany. Our associated partners are European Industrial Hemp Association, European Textile Platform, Bioeconomy for Change, BAFA, and Hemp. So you see, it's a big consortium. Our area is the Northwest Europe. That's where we are active. So our main points is, of course, we really want to integrate that long fiber hemp locally in the textile value chain, that hemp as flax and wool, in a way, become really also a locally grown fiber accessible for the brands and for the end consumer. To do this, we really work in collaboration with all the parts of the value chain. Like you see in our partnership, we have really every step. We have growers, sculptors, spinners, weavers, but we want to go even further and work with brands, designers, schools. To do so, we have pilot actions that I will describe further on. Our challenge is, in fact, to improve every step of that value chain. All the steps exist already. It is possible to grow the hemp, it is possible to harvest it, it's possible to sculpt it, and so on. But we see that all those steps have to be improved. So this is a nice illustration to show how hemp fits in a circular economy. So above, we speak about natural capital because hemp has some really good points on an ecological point of view. Hemp is bio-based, hemp is biodegradable, but also hemp is grown without pesticides and without irrigation. And we believe that's very important. And it gives also a lot of advantages to the growers and to the soil and to the crop. The next crop will also need less pesticides, will have a better production and so on. So it's really interesting. And of course, hemp is also an alternative to polyester. It reduces, the release, and so it reduces the release of microplastics in the environment. In the project, we want also to work on the design. We want to integrate eco-design, but working locally with the local value chain, of course, we diminish already the transport between the several steps. Hemp is a very strong yarn, and so naturally it will increase the lifespan of a product. But we want to do more, of course. We want to propose eco-design prototypes that really enhance the natural color of hemp. We want to valorize that natural color and to mix it, of course, with some dyes. But the idea is to use as less dye, as less finishing as possible. also in order to ease the recycling afterwards. So we work in collaboration, as I said, with all the supply chain, because this is really necessary. We share the data from one step to the other, and we really want to achieve something together. We don't forget the end user, because he is the final aim, in fact, of the project. We want to bring local high-value hemp in Europe, produced in Europe, processed in Europe, so that the end users can have nice local products coming from this crop. We will also work on the recycling, but that's for the end of the project, how to recycle fabric, for example, and obtain with this recycled yarn. And last but not least, hemp has a lot of byproducts, very interesting byproducts. Everything can be used. And for example, you have chives that can be used for energy, and also dust. And dust can, for example, be used in biomethanization. So our activities, we have a first work package. It is for growers. It is really more for, yes, growers and scotchers. You see here on the picture above, this is a scotching line to process flax. And on the picture, we process hemp. So our idea is to copy, in a way, the flax industry and bring to the flax growers, flax scotchers, a new fiber. So we cultivate, we do trials, we cultivate hemp, and we scotch it on that scotching line at Vanderbilt. The aim is to improve, of course, the cultivation, the mechanization, and the scotching. We have a second work package, and this is more linked to the secondary processing steps, like hackling, spinning, weaving, knitting, finishing, recycling. We organize demos for those steps. And for example, at OHENT yesterday, they organized a first demo around weaving at the FTE lab. Because we have, tons of straw, and then tons of fibers, and then yarn, and then fabric. Well, we use them to make tests and to improve, but at the end, we will have certainly nice samples that we can share with the actors of the value chain. So don't hesitate to ask to us. Of course, also for the students. But besides all those steps of improving the spinning, the hackling, the knitting, and so on, we have also activities to wear awareness through workshops, fairs, and so on. The third work package is about trainings. The 3 first trainings are really based on field experience. It's for growers, how to cultivate hemp, how to be successful when cultivating hemp. But then there is also how to use the machines, very, very specific machines, and how to gather data automatically. Data is very important because we work also on the PEF, product environmental footprint. Eduardo spoke already about the PEF. So we want to calculate, in each case, together already some figures in order to be able in future to calculate the PEF of our local produced hemp. And then we have a training for ambassadors. This is a training in 25 for designers, brands, industrials, and so on. So first achievements very quickly, because I think I nearly also spoke a quarter of an hour. But so we have trials in several countries who put all the data together to improve that first step. We did already sketching and hackling tests, yarns. We wove and knitted already some fabrics. Ohand did, for example, some enzymatic bleaching on hemp. And we started the trainings. We have already first contacts with schools. But so you see, we have a very big variety of activities that concerns growers, industrials, but also brands and schools. So please go on our webpage, Hemp for Circularity. We have there an agenda. You can contact me, or there is also a more general address on the website. Please stay in touch with us, see what we are organizing. We have also a page on LinkedIn, and so we would be very happy to host you on one of our next activities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Valentine, for your presentation and sharing your first project results with us. And please also stay with us for the Q&A. And whilst our audience can think about some questions for you, I would like to invite Jasmien back to join us and answer some of the questions that were posed to her in the chat. So I'll start with reading out the first one. Alessandro said, I fully agree with the fact that the increase of the recycling beyond a certain percentage causes a too strong decrease of quality with a negative trade-off on the final environmental impact and a quality unacceptable for the market. In the TRIC project, we got the same feedback from end users. As regards to the PEF, which is the benefit coming from the comparison of the product by virgin material and the one using partially recycled one.
And what is the actual question?
I
Comparison of the product as regards to the PEF,
one.
which is the benefit coming from the comparison of the product by virgin material and the one using partially recycled one. Yeah, I think in general it's a bit of, at this point where we're also still defining the eco-design requirements within ESPR, I think it's just for us the most important learning is that quality should be taken into account. I'm not saying that we shouldn't recycle or that the quality of recycled content is always too low. It was just in our particular demo the case. We work, of course, more often also with recycled content, and it's not the case that the quality is always too low. So I think that's a very important side mark here. And then, yeah, comparing recycled yarns or recycled fabrics with entirely virgin fabrics, that's also a very important lesson learned within this project, because at a certain point you need to say it's not the same. You cannot compare the two. Also not, and now I'm not talking about environmental impact, but also as a brand, as end user, the touch and feel might not be the same, but that's also some kind of consumer phase and consumer adaptation we need to go through. Or end fabric, you can still see tiny dots in colors, blue and red and so on in there. It's not a big deal, but you need to create some awareness as well in the industry and with the consumer that if we want to do something with the gigantic pile of waste, textile waste we have at this point, we will also have to look at fashion and at textiles differently. Yeah.
And also linked to the quality parameters, the second question to you was, on which quality parameters do you need to accept a trade-off? Can the gap partially be covered with newly produced fibers to have a compromise between durability / carbon footprint?
Yeah, I think definitely. But yeah, what's important in our story is that the virgin fabric we had was of such a high quality that it made it difficult to recycle. And that's maybe the lesson learned in the trade-off, also in the choice of materials. When do you choose a virgin fabric just because you really need that amount of quality in workwear, for example, or not? If we look at quality and what we look at, we developed a tool for that to have parameters on a fabric level and on a garment level. So on a fabric level, yeah, we look at spilling, for example, and wear and tear. So that, and you have the technical data sheets of your fabrics from your suppliers that we look at, color fastness and so on. And then you have wear trials where we do the quality testing on to define the product quality as an entire item. So there are different parameters we look at, to be honest.
Okay, thanks. And last question for now is, can you tell me more about the new recycled fiber developed by the Technical University Vienna?
Yeah,
I know you already
I sent
posted
a link because
Yes.
there's a lot of interesting, also, of course, scientific articles published by TU Vienna, but also by Boku on separating elastan and so on. So not only distraction of polyester. So I sent a link to the news webpage because it gives the entire overview of the research done. So that might be the easiest way to check it out. And then maybe as a final note, there was a mistake on my slides we noticed in the chat, so it was a bit late when finishing my slides yesterday evening. I will send an adaptation of the slides to you, but we did not add virgin polyester in the end mix, but we did add virgin wool. So that was a error I wanted to set straight on, so plenary.
Of course, thank you for that. And well, now is the last moment today for everyone to ask more questions. And if there are no more incoming questions from you, I'll give you like a couple of seconds to think about that. But I'm sure if questions come up afterwards, you can also reach out to us and we'll put you in contact with the speakers of today. So that shouldn't be a problem. And if there are no more questions, I would like to say thank you to all our 4 speakers. Jasmien, Valentine, thank you for your presentations in the second half. And I will briefly bring back my slides to share with you what's coming up next. So here you go. In terms of ECOSYSTEX activities, what we have planned is another Insight series at some point in September, similar format to today, with other interesting projects that are part of our community. And we also, as I initially said, organize an annual ECOSYSTEX conference, and the second one will take place on the 15th and 16th of October in Milan, and it will also be the final event of the TRIC project that works on traceability and the DPP, and the MyFi project that works on alternative bio-based materials. So save the date. We will inform all of you on our channels and our mailing list when registrations are open. And let's go to the next slide. We also have 2 member events from the Hereware project and the T-Rex and SCIRT project coming up in June. So Hereware has its final event on the 13th of June in Berlin, where they will present their vision for local, circular and bio-based textiles. And T-Rex project works together with the SCIRT project that was also presented today in an online webinar on ESPR, current strategies and anticipated impact, to which you can register. And then from our side, as you, as our audience, are probably interested in what's going on in the field of circular and bio-based textiles, we have a circular and bio-based textiles innovation hub, where we bring together interested experts to learn, engage with sustainability experts on different topics, and also network and collaborate on the challenges our industry is facing. And my colleague will also drop a link to more information about that in the chat. So go and have a look. And yeah, with that being said, of course, you're invited to follow us on LinkedIn if you're not doing that already. And in case you're also part of an EU-funded project that works on textile sustainability and circularity and would like to join the ECOSYSTEX community, you're very welcome to send us an email, and we'll see if you can join us and potentially also present here in one of our webinars. So yeah, with that, we're coming to an end. And again, very warm thank you to our 4 speakers. It was a pleasure to have you. And then I'll stop sharing and we'll end 5 minutes early. So you can go for your coffee now, and we keep in touch by email. Thank you.
Bye.